Well, hello, welcome back. It's Sarah from Roadworthy. Um, well, trying to think of what has been going on this week. So I did. So last week I mentioned that our library system got hit by a ransomware attack, and I actually went to the downtown library this week. Um, just just to see what was going on, and I did have a chance to chat with one of the librarians, and she said this will probably take weeks to resolve. um, so all of my holds are not happening. I can't log into my account, so I honestly don't even remember what I had on hold, um, which is kind of sad. um, so all of my June, like, Pride reading, whatever. It's all, I don't know what it is. Um, and then you can go to the library and physically check out books, which I did. And they're uploading them into a spreadsheet. Like this, this is a sad state of affairs. Um, Still no audiobooks. So I had to go back and look um, and reactivate my county library card. So I was able to do that. Fantastic. And I'm able to get audiobooks and ebooks through that library system. Um, I can go to those physical branches too, obviously, but they are all outside of the city of Seattle. So, not necessarily super convenient, but you know, the ebook, the audiobook thing, thank God. So that there is a weird noise going on somewhere, and I don't know what it is. Anyway, the joys of filming outside. So, lack of audiobook for most of the week definitely had an impact on things. So, I had to DNF American Elsewhere by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is a horror novel, and the premise of this is we have Mona, our protagonist, who is sort of an orphaned ex cop in New Mexico. Her father dies, and she finds out that she inherited this house from her mother, who committed suicide when Mona was a girl. And the house is in Wink, New Mexico. So Mona heads off to Wink to claim this house. And of course, Wink is not on the map anywhere. She can't find directions. Like, weird. She ends up finding it. Um, and then the residents are all a little odd, blah, blah, blah. I read about 200 pages of this 650-page book. What I could piece together was there are humans living in this town, maybe supernatural beings disguised as humans, and then these supernatural beings out there in the surrounds, with this uneasy alliance that's maybe falling apart. I don't know. And that actually sounded cool. But, like I said, I read about 200 pages, and the pacing is awful. There'll be some event where, you know, maybe there's this like interesting, like, you know, event, or this intriguing conversation between characters, you know, that sort of ratchets up the tension. And then the very next chapter will be like, Mona brushed her teeth and drank some coffee. And like it just, you know, so all the tension that was built up and all the suspense was just like frittered away. And it kept happening. And I lost patience. I read this book, the 200 pages that I read went super quickly. You know, people use that phrase readable. This is readable, but like in a mindless, like popcorn eating way. Like you're flipping the pages, but you're like not even conscious of what's on the page. You know, the writing is not, this is not high literature here, which is fine. You know, I wanted entertainment, but like with a book like this, like the pacing and you, like you better build suspense and tension, you know, and it just, this just was not going to cut it for me. Uh-oh, wait a minute. My wind, the umbrella. Okay, I think we're gonna be, if I suddenly lunge off camera, you'll know I'm reaching for the umbrella. Oh, so the thing I did finish this week was Discomfort of Evening by Lucas Rijneveld. This, and translated by Michelle Hutchinson. This won the International Booker Prize in 2020. Um, and this book is about a rural uh, farming family, very religious farming family in the Netherlands, and their oldest son dies in an ice skating accident. And that happens very early on. And this family is devastated by this event. Um, so you're sort of watching this family kind of disintegrate into despair. And it's Jess is our narrator of the story, and she's, I don't know, 8. Yeah, I think she's about 8. Um, and she has a tremendous amount of guilt because when her brother was headed off to go ice skating, she wanted to go too, and he wouldn't let her. And at the same time, she was worrying that her father was going to kill her pet rabbit for Christmas dinner. And so she sort of prays to God that her brother dies and not the rabbit. And that's exactly what happens. So there's definitely a psychological examination of what happens. So the parents um, become increasingly distant from the children. Her mother sort of stops eating and is losing weight, refuses to touch her children. You know, it's almost like she's withholding um, any input to her body, if that makes sense. Um, and Jess responds to, so Jess is her other brother, sort of becomes a little obsessed with death and starts having these um, there's sort of these ritualistic things that he does to the animals on the farm. Um, Jas, on the cover of this book, I always thought it was like a red piece of fabric, but it's a coat. And this is significant because Jas starts wearing her coat all the time, irrespective of the weather. Um, so like she's wearing this big wool coat in the middle of the summer and she's sweating in it. There's a lot of very visceral, tactile descriptions in here, but it's almost like she's trying to hold everything together. She also tries to keep from defecating. So it's just interesting how Rijneveld has all of these characters sort of have this bodily response to the grief that they're experiencing, that they can't really, that they're not able to verbalize. There's no discussion. Any conversation about the older brother is shut down. Um, you're not, and even though they're very involved in their church, again, that is not a place to talk about this. So people say, "How are you doing?" But they don't really want to hear the answer. And so it's interesting how Rijneveld sort of portrays their grief responses. Um, this this book is called Discomfort, and I would say your response is more than discomfort. Um, it is sometimes it is kind of you definitely have an emotional response to what's on the page. What is on the page can be sometimes devastating, creepy, downright gross, um, disgusting. Again, this is a book where a lot of people talk about the bodily fluids. There is a lot of talk about feces, anuses, vaginas, uh, food, decay, insects, um, frogs. Like, uh, and like Jas becomes obsessed with these two frogs that she captures, and she's trying to encourage them to have sex because she somehow thinks that that will encourage her parents to have sex and that'll make everything all right. She becomes convinced that there's Jews living in the basement that her mother's feeding. So there is a somewhat of a bizarre fantasy life in here as well. So interesting book. Again, not one I could say I could say I enjoyed, but I thought the ending was very good and very fitting. Um, and I, someone else's review in Goodreads felt like, they were trying not to give Freudian interpretations to some of the things on there in here. And I kind of chuckled because I kind of feel the same way. um, so anyway, interesting book. And I am interested in reading Rijnveld's newest release. So that is that. Um, I so what am I reading? I just started a buddy read of Margaret Lawrence's The Diviners with Lindy of Magpie Reads and Marilyn Maya Mendoza. And just started yesterday Tali Girls by Siamak Herawi. And this is translated from the Farsi by Sara Khalili. And then I'm also listening to Summer by Edith Wharton. Um, yeah, so I'm kind of, I feel like, whew, now that I have access to audiobooks again, I'm feeling like I'm like, okay, I'm getting back into my groove. All right. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.